This is Basic, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
IBM came out and said, well, guess what? As of next month, we're not going to be creating any more IBM PCjrs. Leigh, I probably don't even need to make this phone call, but we don't need your book.
This is an interview episode of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. Leigh Zeitz wrote the book The Epson Connection, Atari Edition, about using your Atari 8-bit computer with Epson printers, as well as a version of the book for the Commodore 64. This interview took place on November 8, 2015.
So tell me something about yourself while I try to get visible.
Until today, I thought you were a woman because of the name Leigh.
Well, how do you like that? Join the crowd, huh?
I thought, oh, that's quirky. This woman has a middle name of Edward. That's funny. But
That is. And where are you located?
I'm in Portland, Oregon. How about you?
Oh, I'm in Cedar Falls, Iowa.
Nice.
But I spent 3 years in Eugene at the University of Oregon getting my doctorate.
Nice. And your doctorate is in what?
Specifically, it's in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis on, back then they called it computers in the classroom. That was in 92. And I've been out here at the University of Northern Iowa since 1992. In 98, I was a visiting professor, went over to Malaysia for a year, took my family. And then and I was teaching the same classes over there. And then I came back, and I've been teaching, and I was the instructional technology coordinator at a lab school that we had here at school at the university. And now I came back and left that job and went into curriculum and instruction as an associate professor. And I've been here ever since.
Nice. Nice. Well, let's get into the Wayback Machine, and
Okay.
you can tell me about how you got roped into writing this Atari book and any other 8-bit related activities you might have been involved with.
Well, actually, I wasn't roped into anything. This was actually salvation, I got to tell you. What happened was that I've been playing around with computers since '79, and I had the Apple II Plus and worked with that, and I was part owner in the very first PC magazine to ever come out. Now, obviously, PC and a couple of the other magazines kept going. Ours didn't last quite so long, but it was called Personal Computer Age. And through them, I contacted the Q publishers. That's QUEUE. And they, I talked to them about, the IBM PCjr had come out. And I actually sold them on the idea of a book, and it was called, what was it called? It was called Teaching Your Kids Through the IBM PCjr. And they're really, I am coming to Atari in a moment.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah.
And so what happened was that, I'd written the book, and I'd gotten I was just putting in the final touches, and IBM came out and said, well, guess what? As of next month, we're not going to be creating any more IBM PCjrs. And I had this all set up where, had lots of basic programming in there. I had set up so, there was even a template that you could put over the chiclet keyboard so you could turn it into a piano. I mean, I had all these things laid out. And I'm thinking, and the next day, the owner of, or the president of the company, my publisher, contacted me and said, Leigh, I probably don't even need to make this phone call, but we don't need your book. And you can keep, the upfront money that you got, but I'm sorry. I said, but what do I do? And he told me about this company that was and that somebody was what's the name of the company? Oh, Merdine Publishers. And I contacted them, and it turned out that Epson was trying to sell more printers by creating a need for them. And they came out with this series, the Epson Connection. And they had the Epson Connection for accountants and lawyers. And then they also set it up so they had these different computers. So I talked to them about it. I sent them the layout, the outline and things like that I had used. And they said, terrific, this is exactly what we want. And so I actually wrote one for the Atari XE XL and another one for the Commodore 64. And so what I did is that I took the things that I had created, and it looks like, do you have something in front of you? You look like you're looking.
Yeah,
you actually have a copy of it.
Yes, I do.
Wow. And where did you get that copy?
I don't know. I've had it for a long time. I have a large Atari book collection, and I don't know where this one came from.
Oh, that's terrific. That's really exciting. At least the person saw it. I actually found him in a seconds, on a seconds table once. So you've got all the chapters and everything there, so I don't have to tell you about that.
But you're welcome to, because my listeners don't have the book in front of them necessarily.
That's true. Well, what I did is I started it out, and broke the chapters into sections. The first section was basically setting everything up, and they shipped me Epson printers, and they actually had this kind of printer. I have to admit, it's been a while since I've looked at this, but there was a very special kind of printer that they came out with, and. Let's see.
Did you have an Atari computer at this point? I mean, did you?
I did. Yeah, I had an Atari. And I had Commodore and all that, and I had a great time playing around with it. I mean, that's one of the great things about doing stuff in computers is that they all have games, and you can just sit there and piddle with them, and they're just ingenious. When you take a look at how much you could do with what you had back then, it was just amazing. So I set it up, and like I said, they had this printer that they came up with, and I don't see it in here, but they had a printer that they came up with which was set up so that for each one of the computers you had, they had an insert. So they had basically one printer that they could sell, and then they would sell these inserts.
These module things that you could swap out, right?
Exactly, modules. Mm-hmm. And so that was what they were doing with that. Then what I did is I set it up, and I created something called a computer system at home. And this is where we were talking about how they would be using it. And with the word processing, I actually had them doing recipes and type style, what else? We were doing letters and personal letters and word creative writing and all that sort of thing.
The stuff with print shop and yeah.
Exactly. We were playing around with the fonts and stuff. And then with the shopping list, I made labels and also did some stuff with creating a database with recipes and that sort of thing. And then for home finances, I actually created something so it would write checks for you. And this is all being written in BASIC. And so you could do that and then use that to take care of your checking account. And then, so that was just basically the stuff at home. When we got into the stuff that was happening for school, we took a look at researching with note cards. And even then what I did is, I don't know, when you were in school, did you learn how to use note cards to take notes?
Yes.
Okay. And I actually took that and using a word processor, created pretty much the same thing. I had templates that I set up. And, and the nice thing is, at least the nice thing here is you can't drop the pile of note cards, right? And so I had this all set up once again using basic programming, and then went in and used this to create a number of things. One of the things I did was I actually talked about title pages. Now back then, and this is 1986, you could really get better grades if you had interesting title pages. I actually used to use Print Shop.
Now you tell me.
Yeah, I know, but I actually used to use Print Shop to create a sign, the signs you used to do with the Print Shop.
Uh-huh.
And I'd create a sign for a cover page, and it would have pictures and all that sort of thing on it, and just blew them away. So I did much better with the teachers that way. And then we're talking about practice tests and study guides and things like that we created. And then I went into the actual programming process and how you could use that to format the types of printing that you would have. And then we went into how to write letters and mail merging. Mm-hmm. So you see there's a huge expanse on these things as to what it is you can do and how you can do it.
Did they really send you all these printers? Because there's at the beginning of the book, there's photos of, I don't know, maybe 10 or a dozen different printers. You must
Actually, what they did is they sent me lots of pictures. But if you turn to page 17, remember I was telling you about, I just found it. Yeah, I was telling you about that one that had the cartridges.
Yeah.
They had the Home Writer 10. And what they did is they sent me one Home Writer 10, and then they sent me a cartridge for the Commodore and a cartridge for the Atari. But they had them for a whole variety of them. In fact, actually, it says they're designed to emulate machine-specific printers for Commodore 64, Atari XEXL, IBM PC, PC Junior, and the Apple IIc.
So, how did you? I'm wondering why you were tasked with the Atari. I'm looking at the list. This book was printed basically for the IBM PC, the Atari, the Commodore 64, the Apple. Coming soon, Macintosh, and K-Pro. Don't know if those ever actually came out. So why were you given the Atari and Commodore ones?
I guess I was just lucky.
You were lucky. Okay. Maybe you said I'm surprised you could have got the PC Junior one. You were the expert.
Yeah, well, that's what I really wanted. I was going to really make money on that one.
Right.
This was basically, they paid me there was no royalties or anything on this, just one flat fee, and then they bought each of the books.
Well, how similar were the Commodore and Atari versions of the books?
Very similar. In fact, what I had to do, I obviously had to go in and tweak them, but I had to go in, and actually the first one I did was the Commodore. In fact, I took it from the IBM PC, put it into the Commodore, and then I was changing it from that into Atari. And I remember way back then I had CompuServe, and that's a long time ago. It was pre-web days, and so and this was 1985. And I remember I was trying to figure out how to do some of the transfers into the Atari world, and I went out and I found a bunch of some Atari geeks hanging out. And I sent them notes, how do I do this? How do I do that? And they helped me out and really helped me make my deadline.
So you got a flat fee for the books. You turned them out. How long did it take you?
How long?
A week, a month, a year?
I don't know. This was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But let's see. I would say that actually, I think to write the IBM PC Junior version, amazing. I mean, I was working 40 hours a week, and I still think I got it done in about 3 months. And that's with all the programming and everything else. And I didn't see much of my family then. That was an issue. And then I think to turn each one of these over, it was probably 6 weeks for the Commodore, and maybe another month to take care of the Atari.
Did you get stats on how well it sold?
No, I didn't. I never really found anything else on that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it was a big. The mere fact that you have a copy is just fantastic. It means that we went out into the market.
Right. 86 was getting a little late there for the Atari 8-bit machines.
It was. So, but I think, and then actually this was also the basis, these ideas were the basis for another book that I wrote, which was called, let's see. It was called AppleWorks Applications and Activities. Mm-hmm. And we used some of the same general ideas on that. And I was working with a guy named Leroy Finkel and another guy named Jack McManus, who were, Leroy was just a leader in technology and education in California, and Jack was a professor down in Pepperdine. And we took it from that, and then actually we got a lot of mileage out of this, because after we did the AppleWorks, we then found another publisher and did it for Macintosh, PC DOS, and then PC Windows.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of recycled some of the ideas in here about making reports and.
Well, and we refined it along the way.
Sure.
And I think the difference between what I was doing and what we were doing, and many of the books that were out there, and when they were teaching word processing, and I was teaching how to write creatively using the technology. So it was definitely an applications approach, which made it, much more exciting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for both the reader and for me.
Nice. What haven't I asked you about this project that I should have? Or you're welcome to tell me any other Atari-related stories.
Well, I'll be honest, and that was that I didn't do a lot. I mean, I didn't do a lot with the Ataris.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, there was a Coleco back then, wasn't there?
The Coleco Atom.
The Coleco, which was another
Yeah,
gaming.
the ColecoVision was a game system, and there was like a home computer called the Atom.
Right. Okay.
And if
That
and if you hitched your wagon to the PC Junior, you also didn't want to hitch your wagon to the Atom. That lasted about a month in the marketplace.
and the TI-80 and a few of those other ones
Mhm.
that just kept going.
Yeah.
No, actually, as far as I played a lot of Atari games, and I must admit that I was not an Atari geek per se, but I really enjoyed using the computer and thought that it was just a terrific way to get started in the field, and they were definitely pioneers in the things that they were creating.
So when you're done with this project, were you just like, I hate printers. I never want to print anything.
No, no, not really. I mean, when I got done with this project, I was saying, "Oh my God, I am so glad I was able to salvage all that work I did."
Yeah.
Because I mean, there was another one that I wrote, and I was transcribing from one operating system to another. It wasn't. I think it was Windows. I think it was a Windows one, and it was for an organization called ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education. They're based in Eugene, Oregon. And I got the whole thing done. I turned it in, and they had just released Windows, and they said, "Sorry, we don't need this."
Oh.
And I'm going, "Oh my God!" That's why you always want to get half of your upfront, half of your advance before, half at the beginning and half when you finish. That way you get at least a little bit out of it, right?
Absolutely.
So when you were working with Atari and what was it that got you excited about it?
I was a kid. My dad got it. I was probably in sixth grade or something, and I say this not in a. When I say it was my first love, I really mean it. I fell in love with this machine, and I just adored it, and I wanted to learn everything about it, and I never stopped enjoying it. A lot of people, whatever, they upgraded a new computer, they sold the old one, and then 20 years later they have this nostalgia. I've always had this Atari here, so
Well, do you think it was something special about the machine, or just if you had been started, well, if your dad had bought a Commodore or something else, do you think you might have had the same feeling?
I have wondered that. I don't see how it's possible to love the Commodore, frankly. So
I use that just as a sense of terms.
yeah, you're just trying to, yeah. I see what you're trying to do.
But I
Yeah.
mean, if it had been a PC, or I mean, if it had been something else, what was it? The actual process? Because a lot of times we get into this God feeling. I mean, look at all the things I can create with
Right.
this machine.
I think for me it was really about the way things looked. It was the styling of the machine. It was a
Hmm.
beautiful piece of hardware, more so than some of the other, like the TI-99, which I had access to. It was just the styling was better. The graphics on the screen were incredible, just
Oh
like
yes.
blow your mind colors, and that's I think really what sucked me in. Just the
Hmm.
aesthetic of it, both the actual physical hardware and then what it put out on the screen.
Well, I would definitely agree with you on that. I mean, like I said, they were pioneers in graphics and in really opening up the world. Too bad they're not around anymore.
No, there's a company that calls itself Atari, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just in name only. Yeah,
Okay.
cool. Thank you so much.
Well, hey, thanks. I really appreciate your time, Kevin, and thanks for contacting me on this. Like I said, you've made my week.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.